But yeah, we want to welcome you to this is our last event for Black History Month this year. And we've had such a fantastic, wonderful time. We've had some awesome singers, some dancers. We've had all kinds of stuff going on, and it's been a wonderful time. But I just want to remind you, even though we take this month out to celebrate our Black History Month, this is something we need to be doing all year long. Celebrating. Because each one of us have something to contribute and something to say. So all year long, let's celebrate us. All right? All right, so for our first thing we're going to have a dynamic singer. And our singer her name is Melissa Kennedy. And Melissa, I'm excited because Melissa's my daughter. But her name is Melissa Kennedy. And Melissa has been singing probably since she was 4 years old. And I can remember her very first performance. She not only sings, but she does theater and it all. She's just a talented young lady. But I can remember when she was 4 years old, and I tried to pay her to get on stage. I mean, a lot of money, and she wouldn't get on stage. Well, guess what? I can't pay her to get off now. But her name is Melissa Kennedy, and is an independent artist who sings passionately. And she uses her talent as a tool to invoke healing and open listeners' hearts to love everywhere. Melissa has been singing all her life and comes from a musical family. For nearly a decade, she's been performing with the Grammy Award-winning Sounds of Blackness and has traveled the world from Chicago to Japan. Hey! So currently, she's working with putting out her own music. So y'all get ready for a treat. Let's give Melissa Kennedy a great applause as she comes.
Well, that was a great introduction. Thanks, Ma. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughter. Out from the gloomy the light. Keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
Wow, that was so beautiful. Thank you again, Melissa Kennedy. Can we give her another round of applause? Well, hello everyone. My name is Diva Sardar, and it's my honor to share a little bit about our panelists and our moderator, our distinguished panelists. So I'm just going to read their bios. I will invite them to please join the platform after I've completed your bio. So I'll start with our moderator, Council Vice President Andrea Jenkins, who is my boss. So, thank you. Andrea is the current Vice President of the Minneapolis City Council. She has for more than 25 years of, I'm so nervous, oh my God, I'm shaking up here. I don't know why. Oh my God. For more than 25 years, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so nervous right now. I wish I had a podium or something. Okay, so for more than 25 years, she has been in public. I'm so nervous, I don't know if I can do this. I'm so sorry. I'm like shaking. Can I have somebody else read it? Thank you. I'm like shaking. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Andrea Jenkins is the current Vice President of the Minneapolis City Council. She has more than 25 years of public service experience as a Minneapolis City Council policy aide, nonprofit executive director and consultant, and the Hennepin County Employment Specialist. She is the first Afro-American openly trans woman to be elected to office in the United States. What an accomplishment, yes. Since being elected to public office, Andrea has continued to be true to her campaign promises to develop affordable housing, raise the minimum wage, address youth violence as a matter of public health, and support minority artists. She is a historian, prose author, and performance artist. Andrea uses her various roles in service to the public and is passionate about activating the community on equality issues. Please give a round of applause for our moderator. Next, we have Anika Bowie, is the vice president of the Minneapolis. Oh, she's not here yet? Okay. Reg Chapman. Come on up. Reg Chapman came to WCCO from WNBC TV in New York City, where he covered an array of stories, including the Coney Island, New York, plane crash and 50 shots fired at motorist Sean Bell by New York police. Prior to that, Reggie was a crime beat reporter at KSTB TV in Minneapolis. He also reported at WPXI TV in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he covered the crash of Flight 93 on September 11th, 2001. Before that, Reg was a reporter and anchor for the WHIO TV in Dayton, Ohio, WOW-TV in Omaha, Nebraska, and KTIV-TV in Sioux City, Iowa. A Gulf War veteran, Reg graduated from the University of Nebraska, Omaha, where he earned a Bachelor of Science degree in broadcast journalism. He has received the Edward R. Murray Award for investigative reporting, several Associated Press awards, honors from the Society of Professional Journalists, and the YWCA honored as a Black Achiever. Let's give him a round of applause. Next, we will have Erica Coleman. Come on down, Erica. Erica Coleman is a senior project coordinator at the City of Minneapolis Department of Community Planning Economic Development. She has over 20 years of public and private real estate development and finance experience. Through passion and a commitment to social and reparative justice, she focuses on housing development and sustainability in and with communities that are marginalized and structurally disenfranchised through advocacy, policy, and economic and political education. Let's give her a round of applause. Next, we'll have Shannon Smith-Jones. Come on down, Shannon. Shannon Smith-Jones has been the executive director at Hope Community Incorporated since 2017. She is an adjunct professor at the Humphrey School of Public Affairs. Prior to her taking on the current role, she was the director of community engagement at Urban Homeworks. Shannon is a passionate advocate for individuals and families with a community building approach to housing justice. She uses her strong experience in case management, team building, leadership development, project management, and collaboration for the betterment of urban living. Her position at Hope provides her the opportunity to lead community listening sessions throughout the Twin Cities with renters, homeowners, and the police. The listening sessions allow for candid dialogue involving major issues such as responsible banking, discrimination, criminal justice, and police community interactions. All right, let's give her a hand of applause. And next we got Marquita Stevens. Come on down, Marquita. Marquita is the Director of Education, Programming, and the Policy of Minneapolis Urban League. She is a results-driven visionary leader with a broad array of executive management and operations experience. Her work in her roles as president and CEO of the Afro-American Adoption Agency, Community Engagement with Roseville Area Schools, and with United Way have demonstrated her ability to successfully build, develop, and lead diverse and culturally competent teams. Marquita, the new executive vice president of Black Women Rising, is a committed advocate for equal and social justice. All right. Is Arnika here? Okay, well, we're going to move on and into the hands of our moderator.
Hello. You guys hear me? Good afternoon. Thank you, Marsha, for that introduction, and thank you, Deba, for that introduction, and for all the work that you and MBN and the Department of Civil Rights has been doing to create this series of Black History Month programming. I want to give a shout out to Hennepin County as well for partnering and collaborating with us and bringing these programs to you. And the theme for the city's 2020 event series is Activate, Empower, and raise your voice. Each Thursday in February has presented an opportunity to focus on a sub-theme, if you will. On February 6th, it was a call to action. On February 13th, it was empowering youth. Last week, February 20th, we honored history makers, and today's theme, as lifted up by our beautiful vocalist this morning, is Lift Every Voice, right? And so, was there, and this is for all the panelists, was there a defining moment for you in discovering your ability / calling to influence social change? You want to start?
Let me too say thank you for those who have organized this event and invited me to participate, because it is a worthy and important activity for not only you but all of the onlookers that are gathered here. So thank you. Or I should say the genesis of my personal civil rights and activist opportunity and stance came as a call of God on my life, actually. I was in a situation where I had to stand for African American folks in the context of work. And of course, that's in itself will send you to Jesus. And so God called me, and I've been standing ever since, moving in circles where if it had not been for the Lord, I would not have been able to stand. And so that's the wind beneath my back, the wind beneath my wings, the wind at my back, and it gives me the courage to do the things that I do.
Wow. Jesus, won't he do it?
I don't know if I had necessarily a defining moment. I would say that my family structure, the things that I was exposed to growing up, social injustices were always a part of how we talked about things, whether directly or indirectly. There's a moment in junior high that I remember where they had changed the structure of junior high, where they had like an A group, a B group, and a C group. I see some folks that went to Franklin out there, so I see some nods. And to me, that was a defining moment for me around the injustices about who had access and who didn't. And they had students that, were high achievers, middle achievers, and like low achievers, basically, is what they did. And there's always been those moments of seeing injustices and wanting to do something different about it. And that was, when I saw the question earlier, if there was a defining moment, that was one that stood out to me, where I saw a blatant structural issue that would result in those who had access to something and those who didn't. And I always found that to be, like, for lack of better words, just unfair, and that there needed to be something that different that happened. And so those are the things that continue to drive me.
So for me, no, it was not necessarily a defining moment, but it was, like Shannon said, how I was raised, what I've seen here in Minneapolis, in the Twin Cities, also in other states that I lived. But if there was one time that I had to say, I had to draw a line in the sand as a Black woman that was going to speak up and speak out, not only for myself, but for my people, was working at Hennepin County. And the experiences, the racist experiences that I had as an employee at Hennepin County, and the work that was being done to perpetuate injustices and racial inequity in the city of Minneapolis and throughout Hennepin County. So that's where I drew my line. And if y'all don't know, I'm blackity black, black, black.
Yeah, applaud for that. I don't know how I follow something like that.
Black.
Like I said, I don't think there was a defining moment in my life as well. It may have been how I was raised and growing up the son of Deacon John Henry Chapman and Jerry Ruth Chapman, my dad being a lifetime member of the NAACP, so social change was always something that was discussed at the dinner table, something discussed before I went to school, something that was discussed after school. I do remember a time in high school where there was so much in the news about young black men, and we were all involved in gangs. We were all selling drugs. We were all doing things that we should not be doing. And I was upset because this was a narrative. And my father told me, write about it, change the narrative, have it come from your perspective. And I believe that that seed was planted, which made me decide to be a journalist, because I knew that I could change the narrative, I could speak for those who couldn't speak, and therefore foster change. So it kind of came along from being raised as well as that seed that was planted from my father.
Wow. That it's really interesting. I mean, I think all of you kind of went to some personal spaces that really led to your involvement in what I would say is trying to uplift the race, as it was referred to over time. But in an effort to just try to help get to know you all a little better, tell us a little bit about where you grew up. Let's start with you, Reg.
Just a little poor boy from a small town in Nebraska called Omaha. So I grew up in North Omaha, which is kind of weird because I live in North Minneapolis now. Down the street and around the corner from where Malcolm X was born. So being a North Sider in Omaha is a very proud thing. I remember being a young boy.
Did you say where Malcolm X was born?
Malcolm X was born in Omaha, Nebraska. Yes, he was.
All right.
Yes, he was. Thank you. See, there we go.
Some witnesses.
All my whole life I've been involved in service to my community because of my dad being a deacon. We used to have to go, before there was a monument on the birth site where Malcolm X was born, we would have to go clean it up. It was a part of my chores on the weekend to go cut that grass and to go pick up cans and to make sure that we honored that space because it was sacred to us in our community. I am the smallest of 4 boys in my family. I have 3 brothers. My older brother is John Chapman, who's an anchor, sports anchor. He's kind of like the Mark Rosen of Omaha. So he's been on the air 42 years back in our hometown of Omaha. I have a younger brother who's an IT professional and another brother who runs a homeless shelter outside Chicago. So service is something that's been a part of our lives and as a part of our upbringing, and that's just who I am. I grew up in the church, and I'm still involved in the church, and I'm thankful for that because without God, without my faith, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Beautiful.
So I was born in St. Paul and moved to Minneapolis, and then there were some things I actually grew up with parents that were ex-convicted felons. So there was some time away from my family. Moved to Tennessee, to Chattanooga, moved to Indianapolis. But Chattanooga and Indianapolis, I was always around a strong black community. And when I was here back in Minnesota, when we would come back and visit, or when I was here, there was a strong black community. And coming back older, I saw that my community was not the same. So a lot of my willingness to speak up and speak out comes from what I've experienced and what I've seen other places and how I've grown up in other places, because Minnesota has that Minnesota nice, but black people are different in Minnesota. So just gonna put it out there. But we have to learn to not be that different people up here. We need to be able to find our tribe, find our like-minded folks, find our protection, and speak up and speak out. So a little bit about me is just poor person growing up, some of the struggles and, this disparate impacts that they talk about. I suffered all of them, so it's all right.
Syrup sandwiches in my family, yeah.
So I'm a North Sider. No response from no North Siders in the crowd. NFLs.
South Side.
I live in the Lowe's.
Trey. My sister and I debate whether we're 4th generation Northsiders or 5th generation Northsiders. Either way, we're deeply rooted in the community. My uncle was Dr. Richard Green, so the first black superintendent of the Minneapolis Public Schools on my father's side, and then on my mother's side, we had Harry Davis. So we always, my aunt was one of the first social workers that started a teen mother program at the Phyllis Wheatley. So we've just always really been steeped in community. I grew up going to Zion Baptist Church. So I got a shout out for that, I hear that. But I think those are the elements of always, Minnesota is a very white state. And one of the things that I have said growing up is I really felt incubated by community. I felt incubated within my family. I felt incubated within the church. And they really prepared me to enter and navigate other spaces. They have very direct conversations around how to navigate those spaces. It was talked about, and I think that injustice, social justice was always, again, something that was just ever present in whichever which way.
I guess I'll be the bookend. I too am not from here, so the two of us are here. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I grew up in the Hill District of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Here we go. Oh, okay. All right. Pittsburgh is geographically situated where the black community is not concentrated in one specific geographic location. You have, because of the hills, because of the terrain around which Pittsburgh is developed, you have pockets of black communities, black people in various communities. I grew up in one of them called the Hill District. Grew up in a two-parent household, and my parents were very active in community. My dad was the president of the PTA. My mom worked in the schools. My dad was he worked at the post office and was an accountant, did small business accounting work, the accounting work for the small business in the community, because he couldn't get hired by the big accounting law firms, though he was degreed in such. So the whole issue of race relations was very much a part of our household. My dad, for as much as I loved him, he hated white people. So, because he blamed them for not being able to get the kind of work that he had prepared for. And so life went on for me. I went to undergrad school in Cleveland, and I moved to Kansas City with my husband, and then here. So I've been here for just about 20 years, raised my kids here, though I had them in Kansas City. Been active in lots of different ways, in lots of different fronts through my adult years, starting with the job that I referred to earlier, where I received my call, up until moving to, where am I? Minnesota. Moving to Minneapolis, I ran the African American Adoption Agency for 14 years, and so I was very much involved in moving African American children out of the foster care system and into permanency, and that was a job in which you talk about advocacy work. It was a battle all the time. And then I did a little time in the Roseville school system, and now currently at the Urban League in the realm of education. Interestingly enough, I just came back from a trip to Los Angeles in the Fresno area that examined some schools, charter schools and school districts that were really doing some inventive work around equity and around social justice and around ethnic identity. And so it's encouraging to know that these things can happen, they are happening, and I'm looking forward to seeing the day when it begins to happen here.
All right. So, each of you talked about community and the role of community in your own sort of lives and passion. And, this event was created and sponsored by a community of black folks, but more specifically, it's an employee resource group or an employee affinity group. And I'm wondering, in your respective organizations, does a community like that exist? And I know, Erica, you work here at the city, so I know it exists here for you. But maybe you can speak to what is the importance, or if these kinds of communities are necessary.
Well, one, yes, they're necessary. Absolutely. Like Shannon said, Minnesota is very white, but even if it wasn't, you still have a right, and you should be with like-minded individuals that can uplift and support you and your goals personally and professionally. So a lot of black people talk about church. That's great. I was raised in church. But there's other things with history about church. So you still need to have like-minded individuals in community. So yes, it's very important in the workplace. And I had said earlier, we just have to be honest that working in government is a traumatic place for black folks. Black folks in particular. I cannot talk about anybody else because I'm not anybody else. I'm black. So it's very traumatic to work in government, to come to work, and the same people that you work with, nothing against them personally, are also maybe represented some of the same people that are killing our uncles, brothers, cousins in the street. That's very traumatic. Or the microaggressions and undertones that we have to deal with day in and day out, trying to move forward equitable work, undo historical policies, racist policies, and just navigating white supremacy, period. So yes, it is very important for me to be able to be a part of Minneapolis Black Employee Network, shout out MBEN, because I have a whole group of wonderful individuals, men and women that I would not have normally met because we are siloed here in the city. We don't all work in the same buildings or same departments. I learn a lot. I have people that I can call on, pray with. It's very important, and we are, as humans, we just need community. But as black folks in America, in Minnesota, Twin Cities in particular, we need each other.
Some of you work at all black organizations. Like, what's it like in those organizations? And we definitely want to hear from you too, Reg. Is there a WCCO black employee group, or should there be one? What do you think? What's your thoughts?
It's rough out here, y'all. I am one of 2 black men on the air at WCCO. I lost my dear friend and cousin, news cousin, Angela Davis, to NPR about a year ago. So there is no employee network. There is no support. If you look at the broadcasting entities in our city, there are very few of us. There are no black managers at any television or radio station in this market. So there are no...
What about editors?
None. There are none making content decisions. So those of us that are in these newsrooms have to be very vocal, not just for the black community, but for the Hmong community, the Somali American community, the immigrant community. We have to be vocal to make sure those stories are told, that their perspectives are respected, that their cultures are respected, and that we just don't show up in those communities when something's bad, that we tell the goodness and the good stories that are coming out of there. So thank God for my support system in the city, the men and women that I've met that have adopted me, that have taken care of me, men in my fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Without these guys, I would not have the foundation I have. I also will cross the river to go to St. Paul and to sit at the feet of my elders, so Dr. Mahmoud Okadi and Tyrone Terrell, to go and sit and listen to them and to take their guidance. Because it's important. When you don't have an employee network, when you don't have a support system, when even the people who clean up the building don't look like you have to go outside to find that, to make sure that you matter, what you say matters, and people care about what happens to you.
Can we adopt Reg into our employee group, you guys? Shannon, you want to talk about this for a little bit?
So Hope Community is super diverse. We have a very diverse staff. We have a very diverse board. So I think there's a couple things. One, I think it is super important that you have affinity groups or folks that you can connect to and like bounce things off of, right? We all have that moment where, like, am I crazy? Or, are they tripping with me? And sometimes you just need to have a gut check, and you need to have someone that you can do that with, and you need people that can help you navigate through these spaces. Being one of the only, if not the only, woman of color running a housing organization, I'm in another field as well outside of the organization that makes it very difficult to navigate spaces. And so I think there's something to be said around having the elders, having the community around you to help you go through spaces, because it's exhausting. Being a person of color, no matter where it is that you're dealing with microaggressions every single day, sometimes from the time you walk out the door until the time you walk into your house. And that can be exhausting. And we're fighting for things that we're passionate about, where people's lives matter in that. So there's this other emotional toll that you're taking on saying, I really care about this community, and the things that I'm trying to bring forward have a collective impact in the communities that I care about. So I think it's absolutely essential for you to have whatever your affinity group, whatever that is, and I think every organization should give space for people to speak their truths, for those truths to be listened to, for those truths to be valued. You don't always have to agree with it, but you have to have space for that.
Thank you.
I echo everything my colleagues have said, but I do want to add the fact that you just need some place to exhale. I mean, if it's nothing more than that, you need a place to exhale. People of color, by whatever ethnicity, are always on, and that's exhausting. And beyond the self-care routines that people advocate, you just need a place to exhale, and a lot of times affinity groups can be that place. I'm old enough to remember some transitions in the workforce here, and I can remember years ago, before affinity groups were commonplace or as common as they are now, you would have, if you were a minority in a predominantly white space and you were talked, 2 or 3 people would gather, then somebody would come up and try to integrate it or bust it up in one way or another. And I can remember this in my United Way days. And there was, at the time, a group of 3 CEOs, 3 black CEOs, a man and 2 women, who formed, with the funding from the national, a affinity group that pulled from every affiliate across the country. And we would go annually or every 2 years to a meeting, workshop, conference, for 3 or 4 days just to connect with each other. And that made all the difference in the world of being able to make the kind of change and be the kind of presence that we all needed to be in that context. Money and the power of money and the allure of money can do some strange things. And so when you're in philanthropy, that's at play. And so to make sure you're representing in a way that is fair and equitable to your own community, it requires you to stand and say some things that you typically don't have to do in another context. And so having that affinity group, even though it was a national group as opposed to a local group, made all the difference, because you could exchange strategies, you could just network with each other, and when things came up during the during the course of a year, you had a connection, you had somebody that you could talk to. And that made all the difference. Locally, I remember at the Roseville School District, they did have, under Juanita Hoskins, who was the director at the time, the ability to pull together all of the teachers and administrators of color in a affinity group, brought in a consultant to work with them on various issues that they were confronted with. So it makes a difference, and a lot of times African American, other folks of color who have to function in predominantly white spaces encounter and have to do things differently because they are approached differently. People respond to them differently. And so they can't use and abide by the same techniques that you learn perhaps in college as you're preparing for becoming a teacher. You have to do things a little differently, and you have to have a place to be able to practice those things. So it makes a difference, both professionally as well as personally.
Great. Great responses. Man, this panel could go on for hours, but unfortunately we don't have that amount of time. And so one last question, I'm a reluctant politician, and we are in the midst of one of the most important elections of our time. They're all important, but this one seems really extra. Quite frankly, I feel like our entire democracy is at stake right now. And so I want to know, and I'm sure our audience members want to know, if you have a presidential nominee that you are supporting. And full disclosure, I'm undecided. So, but I'm sure you guys have some opinions. Marquita, you want to start?
This is not an urban league position. No, I don't want to share my personal selection. I have made up my mind. But I do want to say that the central issue for me is citizenship. What does citizenship mean? What does it mean to be a full citizen? And the answer to that question guides my selection. Who can put into place those things that allow me and mine to participate in this democracy as a full citizen?
I'm actually undecided as well. I am deeply concerned, not even just with Trump being reelected, but even with our candidates, our Democratic candidates. And so I think as I listened to the last couple debates, and I was like, oh man, we're in trouble. But I just encourage all our votes matter. And so I'm of the mindset that I don't care who you vote for, go vote. And encourage the folks that don't think it matters to go vote. Drag them to the polls if you have to, because it truly does matter. But currently I'm undecided. I think it's a day, but I change my mind every day.
I'm undecided, but I am going to note that all the Black and people of color was ran up out the Democratic selection. Just gonna note that. But I am undecided. Like Shannon said, make sure you vote. I can't tell nobody how to vote, because you got to vote for what's important to you at this point in time in your life when it's time to vote. I think there's a lot that we can do. Especially, I think that, yes, this election is important, but I think our local elections are extremely important. We have people running for Hennepin County Commissioner. We got city council members outside of Minneapolis. I'm talking about Minneapolis. City council, although there will be a special election.
There will be.
Who y'all got? There's going to be a special election. Go get somebody for Ward 6. I'm just going to throw that out there. That is not a plug by the city of Minneapolis. That is my own personal point. But no, I'm undecided, and I also don't believe in all of the rhetoric of vote blue no matter what, or this and that. I don't believe in none of that. I'm going to vote for what meets my needs, my family, my community at this point in time. And I suggest everybody else do the same.
As a journalist, I really shouldn't talk about my opinion, and I really don't have an opinion, and at the present moment, I think I am undecided, but I can tell you, speaking as a combat vet, a veteran of the Gulf War, that I'm concerned about our country and our safety of our country. I'm also concerned about our young people being engaged in the political process, and so my job as a Black man and as a journalist is to make sure that you encourage young people to get out to vote, because those that didn't vote last time, if they were to vote this time, whoever they get together and collectively support will win. Young people don't realize the political power that they have. I don't care if they're white, black, Puerto Rican, or whatever. The young people are actually, if they vote, they can be responsible for electing the next president. So my whole thing is making sure people are aware of all the issues and aware of what impacts their lives and vote accordingly.
Awesome. Get out and vote, everybody. Can we just thank all of our panelists, Reg Chapman, Erica Coleman, Shannon Jones, and Marquita Stevens with a big round of applause. Thank you for being a part of this programming here at the City of Minneapolis. And, you know, as I stated earlier, it's been a month-long series, and so we are just really grateful for MBEN and this Department of Civil Rights, and particularly Director Velma Corbell, who has been single-handedly driving this ship. We also appreciate cooperation with Hennepin County and all of the staff there, and all of the speakers, amazing speakers that we've had throughout the month of February, and entertainers and performers. The high school students who performed were just outstanding and incredible. And so I want to thank all of them. And anytime I get an opportunity to have a microphone in my hand, I got to talk about the 2020 census, right? And make sure that we are getting out for the census and filling out our own census, but not only that, making sure that every member in our communities are counted and accounted for, including our babies, including our disabled communities, including our undocumented immigrant brothers and sisters. You talked about citizenship. Marquita, you don't have to be a citizen to be counted in the census. We got to make sure that we're getting everybody counted. To that end, of course, I wrote a poem about it, Anita. Y'all want to hear it? Here it go. We take control. You can change the world if you care enough. That's an epigraph by Marion Wright Edelman. Hear ye, hear ye. The matter of the 2020 census is upon us. This is the year to take charge, to be the North Star, to level up for our neighborhoods, to get to the heart of the matter. We must be counted because the babies are counting on us. We must be counted to keep the dream alive. We must be counted because Black, trans lives matter. Disabled lives matter. Undocumented immigrants' lives matter. Because Black lives matter. Extra, extra, read all about it. The Constitution requires that we count everybody in the country. We must count the indigenous people, the Somali people, the Korean and the Hmong people. There needs to be an accurate count of all the people who live here so that we can fund libraries where young people discover who they are. So we can build hospitals to take care of the elderly and infirmed. So that roads and bridges are built to transport the necessities of life. Mother, 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 there's far too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. Audre Lorde said, if I didn't define myself for myself, I would be crushed into other people's fantasies of me and eaten alive. It is our moment. When we love, study, struggle, like Robin D.G. Kelly compels us, we say to the world, we count, we matter. Thank you. Thank you again to all our panelists, to MBN. There's an amazing exhibition in the gallery between Hennepin County and the city of Minneapolis. Please check it out. It's celebrating the 85th year of the Minneapolis spokesman and recorder. And just check out this history that they have been documenting throughout the years for 85 years, telling Black stories, telling our stories, and have a great afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much.
This next song, this last song, is called Rise Up by Andra Day. So just let the words just nourish your mind and your soul and your spirit. And just remember as a people what we got to do every day is rise up together. You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out and move mountains. We gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains, bring it to its feet and move mountains. And I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. All we need is hope, and for that we have each other. Yeah, for that we have each other. We will rise, we will rise, we will rise. We'll rise. And I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you,
Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the panel. Thank you for Council Vice President Jenkins for moderating. Please be safe on your way out of here this afternoon, but before you go, have some cake. There's lots of cake to be eaten. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next February